I have Grant with me today, guys. We normally are talking 49ers. Normally you're seeing Grant and it's 49er related. We're going to talk about Grant. It's going to be indirectly 49er related. We're going to talk about his come up. He covers the Niners, how that came to be, and how this YouTube creation came to be. Grant, let's start early on. Let's you talk to me about. I want to go in chronological order with your story. Talk to me about growing up in Oakland.
Okay, so I grew up in the hills, right around the corner from Skyline High School. Not a rough neighborhood. I went to elementary school at Redwood Heights, down the hill, and then I went to public middle school at Montera and Montclair, both in nice neighborhoods. But what's nice about those schools is like it was a real melting pot of. I went to school with kids of all different socioeconomic backgrounds, which is what's nice about Oakland. If you go to an Oakland public school, you meet everyone, which is great. So I feel like even though I didn't grow up in, a tough neighborhood, I'm not tough at all. I'm really not. I've never been in a fight in my life. I've always been able to kind of charm my way out of them. But at least I feel like I grew up around, I have the Oakland experience. And it means I've lived here every year of my life except for college. So I went to those two schools, and then I went to Bishop O'Dowd for high school, which is a Catholic school. I'm Jewish. Kind of funny. I have a brother who's 12 years older than me, half brother. He went to Skyline. Which is one of the 6 public schools, and it's in a nice neighborhood. It's just terrifying. It's scary.
Really?
Man, it's Oakland Tech is the good one. There's some good Oakland public schools, but Skyline's terrible, or at least, it's not good. And my brother had all these terrible stories about, he was there like during the Rodney King riots, and kids just getting beat up left and right. And he graduated in '94. He went to why am I talking about my brother? Someone shot off a gun at one of the parties, and not party at the dance at school in the gymnasium. Really? So my parents were like, "You aren't going to go to Skyline," and I was like, "That's okay by me." So I went to O'Dowd, and I played sports not very well. I was on my senior year. I was in this thing called campus ministry team, which is like it's supposed to be a religious thing. I'm the one Jew on it, and basically what we did was we put on skits at the they're not assemblies because they're religious. I don't know what they're called, but they're supposed to be liturgies. I don't know what Christians call them. I'm sorry. I forget. What do they call it? Liturgies? Something like that? Something like that? I don't know.
Christians? I don't think so.
Anyway, once a month, you'd have to go and do some religious stuff at a Catholic school, And
I'm Christian background.
I don't know what it was called. But anyway.
But you would know probably.
Anyway, they would have this thing called the CMT, these seniors that would put on like a skit that would kind of drive home the theme of that mass.
Okay.
And I got to do that my senior year, and I was kind of like one of the writers on it and one of the main performers on it. And it was always funny that I got like a Jewish kid was like kind of directing the Christians on what to think about their mass. But that's sort of, I guess, I was doing a little performing in high school, if you think about it. Yeah.
So you were like screenwriting. Essentially,
play like sketch writing.
Yeah.
Like sketches. Okay. Yeah,
it was like bits, like little
bits. Yeah, they were okay.
Like SNL.
I was 17. They were all right. They weren't bad. Yeah.
Were you a writer in high school? Were you a pen to paper guy growing up?
I mean, I was an English major in college, and my dad was a writer, and my mom was an English teacher. So it was something that I was brought up in, and we always talked about, opening lines, tone, all that kind of stuff. But it was never something that like I was super natural at. It was something I was raised in. But I mean, how many people our age are really great, read a ton and are great? Like I just probably never read enough to become the writer that my dad's I feel like my dad's the best writer I've ever read. And it was always tough. I always was proud of my stuff, but it was like, I'm never going to be as good as him, even close. So it was always kind of felt like a lot of pressure. Like, I mean, I'm supposed to be really good at this. Like I was born into it, and I'm just kind of mediocre. Maybe I was better than mediocre. I don't know.
So, yeah, because writing, it's an art form. It's very hard to do. There's not very many.
It's very hard to do. It takes a ton of practice, like playing the piano or the cello. You got to do it every day. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to let someone else edit you, and you got to take their criticism. And that's the hardest thing in the world, man. Brutal. It's so hard. It's never easy. You never get to the point it's like, okay, I can take the criticism today. Like, but you got to do it. Otherwise you don't get better.
Some of those college classes, I've been in college classes where you got to read your stuff to everybody and they got to light you up. Oh my dude, it's horrible.
Well, teachers should do better. I mean, I've been in those situations. My dad was a teacher, a creative writing teacher. You can't let the students tee off on each other. What you got to do is say, everyone start by saying one thing you liked about this.
Yes.
Because these people are sensitive and they're putting their work out there. You can't just be like, oh, I didn't like this. I didn't like that. It's easy to do that. And you crush people. You can crush writers fast. We're all very sensitive.
Very sensitive.
Very sensitive. Yeah.
Your work is personal. Your work.
Hell yeah, it is. And when you're a journalist, you put it out every day and like everyone's like, hey, this sucked. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks. But that's the way. That's the
YouTube comments.
That's the life.
That's you avoid YouTube comments.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, so high school, that happened in high school. Right after high school, there's a transition period before you start covering the Niners. You went to school. You went to UCLA. Yeah. And you were an English major.
Yes.
So, and that's really where you started penning stuff, writing.
Right. What happened was I went down there as a history major, not knowing what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Then I didn't like the history classes I took. I thought that was boring. I took a good one in high school. Anyway, I didn't like history. So I transferred to English. And by, I want to say my sophomore year, I figured out that I wanted to be a sports journalist. How did I figure it out? I kind of felt like I was going to have an epiphany at 18 or 19. That this is what I want to do. Yeah. And it never came. Like lawyer or something. It just never freaking came. Everyone else knew it, like pre-med, all this stuff. I'm like, And all I knew is like at UCLA, I'm supposed to be taking all this stuff so seriously. And when it's finals, I'm just stuck on 49ers web zone forums, like just all day talking about the Niners. And I'm like, man, I'm wasting my parents' money. What am I doing here? Why am I at UCLA? I was like all this self-shame, but then I realized like, well, if this is what I'm passionate about, and I always felt like I was good in the forums, like they were kind of boring and people weren't really getting the conversation going. And I could go in there and get it going, like kind of what I do now. You know, stir the pot a little bit. Come on, let's get a conversation. This is boring. Yeah. And I thought I was just like addicted to it as soon as I started talking in those forums. And I guess I figured if this is what I'm going to put all my brain power into, then just do it. So I started a blog with my dad in 2007, back when starting a blog was
that was hot.
Am I here still? All
yeah,
right.
You're good.
So we did that, and it would start off as just like once a week.
How old are you in 07?
19.
You're 19 years old. So you're still in college. Just started college, probably.
I pitched to my dad. I was like, hey, me and you once a week, we'll take opposing viewpoints. You'll say one thing, I'll come against you. We did it for 2-3 years. We missed weeks a lot. I mean, it wasn't that serious. I didn't write for the Daily Bruin. I didn't do anything like that. I did a kind of regular college experience, got a bunch of B's, some A's. I wasn't the most dedicated student in college. I did this other thing. And by the time I was 22, I had enough clips. I was a decent writer that I could try to sell myself as a freelancer. And I got to sit down with the people at what is now called NBC Sports Bay Area, CSN Bay Area.
Okay.
And it was funny. I'll never forget. The lady's name was Jen Franklin. She was the man at that place. She was the person who hired and fired. So I went to her office and I said, so I'm Lowell Cohn's son. And I thought that would impress her. I didn't know what people thought of my dad. I was 22. I'd been in LA for 4 years. And she goes, oh, yeah, you always know what he's going to write. And I was like, oh, you don't like my dad. And she was like, well, except for when you don't. I was like, okay, so I'm in the hole. This person doesn't like my dad. And but then she did say, like, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd like to write, just let me write one article a week for you. And you can pay me $100 an article. And she said, okay, give me some samples. So I gave her some samples and she said, yes. So that was how I started writing, about $100 an article in 2011.
Okay.
Yep.
That was your first job covering sports.
Well, for a year coming out of school, I got an internship at KTVU, which is the Channel 2 spot. So for the first 6 months, I was on the way to being a producer, not talent, a producer, the guy who sets everything up and does the grunt work. And I was covering high school football. Okay. I was going around the Bay, getting timestamps for the touchdown, so I could call back and be like, okay, first touchdown at 7:45, second touch, that kind of stuff. And then I realized I freaking hate this. I don't want to make highlights. I don't want to do this. I want to be in the game. And that's when I got the gig with CSN, which is now NBC.
You knew you wanted to be a creator.
I figured that. Yeah. I didn't want to be the guy in the background. And I really liked being able to have a say, an opinion, to sort of be in the conversation, which is what I was doing in college when I was wasting time on warriorsworld.net and 49erswebzone.com.
It was synthesizing opinion.
Yes.
That's what you found. At a certain point, the light bulb went off, and it wasn't lawyer, it wasn't doctor. It was, I'm an opinionist.
Yes.
About sport.
There is this sports conversation happening in the Bay, and I want to be in it. I want to direct it. I want to do it for a living. I don't think anyone's ever thought about it in that terms, but it was like it's the only thing I'm passionate about, man. And I knew it's like, if I don't do this for a living, I'm going to waste all my time here. My brother got me an internship in 2008 when I was 20 at his tech company in San Francisco. He's like a big deal 32-year-old salesman making bank, and he's like, I'll get you an internship. The whole time I was on warriorsworld.net and 49ers Web Zone, man. I was the worst intern of all time. I probably made my brother look bad. I'm sorry in retrospect, but it's a calling. It's the weirdest, stupid calling of all time. And I knew if I didn't make it my profession, it would just ruin my actual profession and take all my time.